Welcome to the SmartFlow podcast presented by JOTFORM, where we feature top leaders sharing their smart solutions in business and life.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. I'm one of the hosts of the SmartFlow podcast, where we feature top leaders in healthcare. Today is no different. I have Ryan Torresan of Peak Dental Services. And Ryan, before I formally introduce you, a couple things. One, this episode is brought to you by JOTFORM Enterprise. JOTFORM Enterprise is a HIPAA-friendly, no-code platform that empowers healthcare organizations worldwide through custom forms, e-signatures, and more. And their solutions enhance patient-provider experience by streamlining, and this is funny because Ryan's going to talk about MOPS, which is like the bridge between marketing operations. So it's kind of a perfect segue there. But it helps streamline intakes and automate administrative tasks all in one secure environment. And there's a great example when I was talking to the founder of, which is, they had an example of Body Brave, and Body Brave consolidated 5 separate platforms and replaced it with JOTFORM Enterprise. Obviously saved 120 hours of staff time, but also money because they can consolidate the data collection and reporting tools in one place. There's a lot of popular use cases for healthcare organizations, like digitizing forms, replacing paper-based processes, e-signatures, and much more. And most importantly, it's easy to implement. I've even used JOTFORM. And so it's simple for even non-technically minded people. So you can check it out at jotform.com/enterprise. I am excited to introduce today's guest. Ryan Torresan is an expert in dental and healthcare marketing. He has over 15 years of experience leading marketing at some of the largest dental support organizations, DSOs, in the US. He's spearheaded innovations like launching the first dental implant partnership network and integrating AI into marketing to supercharge patient acquisition, which we'll go into. Because I know, Ryan, you're saying there's people who are testing and experimenting with AI, and there's people who are like, I have no idea what to do in this AI universe. Where should I even start? And so we'll talk about that. Ryan is the Chief Marketing Officer at Peak Dental Services, which has 60 plus offices, and he's focused on everything from lead generation to full funnel ownership. And we'll talk about the strategy he calls MOPS, we'll call it MOPS, but it aligns marketing and operations to maximize conversion and revenue. And he's an advisor to dental groups and private equity firms, helping lots of organizations avoid marketing pitfalls and leverage AI and just drive that transformational growth. So, Ryan, thanks for joining me.
Great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Let's start off, just talk about what you do in Peak Dental Services.
Yeah. So the title's technically Chief Marketing Officer. So it's all things marketing related underneath that. And nowadays, that's everything from your digital marketing, your social media, your SEO. But really what it comes down to is our ability to fill schedules, get it there as efficient as possible. What are the tactics that we can do that with? And then how are we retaining the patients? That's usually kind of the core of it. And then we also do support, recruitment marketing, HR marketing, if you will, as well as, we're going to acquire some practices. That's a growth model in the space. So how do we market for that and position the company Peak Dental Services as a brand out to employees and out to businesses or dental practices that we can purchase, where the marketing at a patient level is more neighborhood dentists because we're not commonly branded. How do we get them from a 10-mile radius to choose us to be a dentist versus somebody else?
You say it so nonchalant, like fill schedules, but when you're talking about 60 plus offices, that's not such an easy thing. Talk about some of the challenges. I mean, just with one office, sometimes it's difficult. And now we're talking 60 plus offices. Some of the challenges just working and what you have to think about when there's a larger organization and so many offices involved.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So initially, right, like whenever you join a dental group, in my situation, dental groups, but any group really, healthcare, something like that. So what you're really looking at, the first thing you got to do is get a peek under the hood and see how things are structured. And one of the first things that I tend to look at outside of hey, what are you doing for paid search? What are you doing for SEO? I can figure out really fast the benchmarks, or I know the benchmarks. I can compare it and figure out really fast whether there's waste going on or not. But really the next part is it's really almost mid-funnel down. And you start getting into things like a capacity analysis. So that could be things like how many quote slots are open on the schedule, how far out are they booked, and how fast can we get the patient in. And you have some offices that'll say, call them today and they can't get you in until August. And you have another office that says, hey, great, I can get you in 2 days from now. So from a marketing standpoint, one, I'm going to shift where I can spend my dollars. Number two is I got to have a conversation about why we booked 45 days out because, a patient might take the appointment and they might say, great, I'll come in August. Reality is they probably hang up with you. They call the next dental office and then that dental office says, hey, I can get you in next week or I can get you in this week. And they end up taking that appointment. And then an organization like us all of a sudden is like, well, geez, why do we have a high no-show rate or a cancel rate all of a sudden? So, that's kind of initially when you talk about like, geez, filling the schedules. So that concept that you mentioned at the top, which is MOPS, which is marketing operations, it's like one of the first things I look at. And then you say, great, now we can take a look at the marketing tactics and are we being efficient? But I got to make sure I got enough places where I can land the plane.
Yeah, and when I mentioned with JotForm, it's about creating efficient workflow. So I always like to ask bottlenecks that occur. And I've heard you talk about, so I love to hear in a dental practice in general, what do you see the bottlenecks? And I've heard you talk about hygienists in staffing there can be a big bottleneck. So maybe start with that one.
Yeah. So in dental right now, there's a hygienist shortage kind of going on. So dental offices are being very competitive about, can we get a hygienist? If you don't have a hygienist, really the way it works is right. Patients usually come in through the hygiene side of the fence. Then after your hygiene appointment, you see the doctor same day, comes in, checks everything out, and then you're essentially presented with your treatment plan and how it's going to work, and hopefully a great relationship with that dental office over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So, bottleneck number one, if you don't have hygienists all of a sudden, or you have a hygienist, but they can only be there part-time, let's say, or 2 days a week, that's how you all of a sudden you get your schedule pushed so far out. And that's bottleneck number one is what we talked about is this capacity issue. Bottleneck number two is, are they doing an hour and a half hygiene appointments? Are they doing 45-minute appointments? Because that changes the number of people you can get in throughout the course of a day. And then you just start looking at things like, if I generate the lead, is the lead getting through to the right people? In our world, that's generally a call center. For new patients, existing patients, we usually route directly to the office. But do I have a high missed call rate? That's another huge bottleneck in the industry. Are we not, addressing the patient appropriately? The model is usually, we accept most major insurances, come on in, but you're gonna get that patient that calls up and says, I don't have insurance. Do you have a discount dental plan for me? And if you can't present that appropriately, that could be another bottleneck. And you just go down the line of, sometimes offices will move their schedules around, and all of a sudden you're like, well, geez, you have a bunch of cancels that are appearing here, but it's really because you're moving the schedule around. So you can get a bunch of different bottlenecks all throughout the funnel when you look at this thing. And that's really the importance of why I call it that MOPS concept. Marketers today, they got to be able to look at this thing all the way down, and they want to build it if they're smart. They want to build it so I know my data points all the way through to the point where it's treatment presented, treatment accepted. And we should be able to help figure that out. We're not clinicians, so we're not going to tell a clinician what to do. But, we want to know those data points so we can help fill those schedules.
Do you remember a point, Ryan, where you were thinking about this MOPS concept? Was there a specific point in time where something was happening? There was a scenario where you're like, this is actually, they're not two separate, distinct silos with marketing operations. They are combined. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was early on in the career. So you go back about 14 years or so. One of the first dental groups, or I should say, not one of the first dental group I actually worked with is Great Expressions Dental Centers. And I had great operating partners there. One was Lee Feenberg. He's now the CEO of a different dental group. Another one was Josh Gwynn, just great operators. I remember sitting down with them individually, you're just having that like, hey, the dental office needs more marketing, they need more patient conversation. And just kind of as discussions, as I was kind of learning the industry, it just kind of bubbled up to the top in that conversation with those guys of, hey, schedules, and we should look how far out they are and why ortho is different from oral surgery, is different from general dentistry. So it first clicked with me there, initially. Then you fast forward a couple years, and it was when I was at an organization called Benevis. Is I went to our analytics person and I said, it's kind of like flying a plane. Like, I mean, I've never worked at Delta, but I've flown on enough planes. But it's pretty clear to me that, they get aggressive with their pricing when they have very few seats left. And when there's tons of seats left, then all of a sudden they want to move people around or, they can get you on a flight last minute dirt cheap. So it dawned on me, right? Like capacity in a dental office is very similar to like a flight, right? Like, and if we don't bring patients through, um, you know, we don't make any money. The doctor doesn't make any money. The patient doesn't get the care that they want. And the more we can forecast out this capacity, the better it is. So when I was at Benevis, we went through COVID, and COVID changed the game on a lot of things. We were still open, but then you remember, like the rules were like you could only have so many people in the lobby, you could only have so many patients in, going through the office at a time. And all of a sudden, like, you know, eyes wide open, you're like, okay, capacity is huge. We need a report that can build out the schedule where I can look out 45, 60 days and see how full we are. And I can look out next week and see how full we are. Because now I can start being really predictive about my marketing. Because you could come to me and say, Ryan, today's the last day of the month. Great, pound the phones, work whatever, but we're already filling 2 weeks out. We're already focused on May. So that's like I said, where it all of a sudden started to click for me because I said we can be much more predictive about how we can fill the schedules.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Talk about the capacity thing for a second. So it's a great thing and a frustrating thing to be like, hey, we're booked out for 3 months. And you're like, okay, we have to halt the, all the marketing. I mean, all of it, but the advertising, if you're doing paid ads and things for an office. But I'm sure you're going in there and kind of looking at their head, like, how do we not have that happen also? What are some of the ways that I don't know, increase capacity if isn't the right word, but to look that you've looked under the hood and be like, actually, I know you said we're booked, this office is booked out for 3 months, but here's some things we could do to actually accommodate people. Cause, people want to get in, and especially if they're having pain, like they don't want to wait either,
Yep.
So what have you found when looking under the hood that has helped maybe offset this capacity issue of saying we're booked out for 3 months?
Yeah, it's a good one. I would love to say all my dental offices are booked out 3 months. I can't necessarily say that's a true fact, but you bump into it. And so outside of, saying, hey, we have an HR issue where we got a recruitment issue where we got to get a hygienist in here, we got to get a doctor because no hygienist, no doctor, we can't really see patients, right? So if you kind of move that aside and you say, okay, great, from a marketing standpoint, so two things kind of happen when you say, hey, geez, we're booked out 2, 3 months. You bring your marketing down, you reduce your spend, and you kind of keep it at what I kind of like a light level, keep the SEO going, get the social media going, but I'm not going to do so much paid search at that point. Um, the other side of that coin is going to be you go back to your operating partners and you say, hey guys, look, how many columns is an office running or a doctor running, I should say. You know, if they're running 2 columns, should they really be running 3? Like the example you brought up is like, hey, my tooth got knocked out today. I got to get in. That's column 3, an average doctor, in my opinion, is probably right around 3 columns. And so what I mean by columns is if you did hour blocked a doctor, let's say, 8 per column essentially. So that's 24 appointments in the course of a day. It's a lot of appointments. Some doctors might say, hey, I want 15, I don't want to do 24. It's an operations thing. But that's one way you open the capacity is you say, hey, doc, look, I got people that want to get in. Can we train you or show you the right way to maybe go to 3 columns? Because that third column can be where you get your emergencies in. And if there happen to be a couple open slots, when you're doing your daily huddle, you kind of have like a hot list of people that said, hey, I want to get in for an appointment before the 6 month mark. Like whatever, I'm going on vacation in June. So if you get me in before then, that'd be great. Those are the people, your office manager, like, they work the phone and let me fill those slots for you really fast. So there's a way to be, point is there's a way to be
So is
smart about
that like there's certain in column one, obviously each appointment takes a different amount of time, but those are more routine type of things. And then overlaying if someone has a 10 o'clock appointment, but it's like, it's typically a quick thing than maybe having another appointment available at 10:15 or something that you could fit someone in. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, what it really is you just think like go back to that plane example I gave you, right? Like how all of a sudden can we make more seats available? And so like you said, it's like, and every doc does it a little bit different, every office does a little bit different. Ideally as a marketer, we want what we call templates so we can know where to slot them in through different tactics. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But really, the key there is like what you said is, hey, look, an hour blocked here. Jeremy's coming in, he's getting a cleaning. It probably doesn't take the full hour. Maybe the doc's just popping in for 10, 15 minutes. It's still on his schedule, but he's going to the next room because he's got another column there. And maybe this time it's a crown. It's going to be a little bit more time for him, but it still fits within that hour block because there's only 15 minutes with Jeremy. I don't know, maybe the crown's going to take me making it up here 30 minutes. And, I can fit somebody else in on that third column if I know how to manage my office appropriately and the dental team knows how to work well together. So that's one way you do it. As a marketer, when you get into AI solutions and stuff like that, and you say, you know, do patients always want to call the office and book an appointment? No, they want to go to your website, just book it directly there. There's AI software now, like a Pure Logic of the world or Resonate AI, where if it's a missed call situation, it triggers essentially a text. You're interacting with it just like a human being. And they say, hey, Jeremy, not a problem. Totally cool. Like, you want to book an appointment? Let's schedule you right now. And we just as marketers need to know where we can fill those slots.
I'm wondering, Ryan, from a marketing standpoint, right? What works and what has not worked from a marketing standpoint, maybe on the front end, offering on social or paid ads, right? I'm sure you've experimented with a lot of things throughout the years. So I'm always curious on what has worked and what has not worked. And maybe you thought, oh my God, this is going to dominate, and it just didn't.
Yeah, there's a couple different examples of, what works and what doesn't. 10 years ago, it was TV, it was direct mail, and it was paid search. Those were the main vehicles a lot of people were running at their respective dental groups. And it could be hit or miss, right? So back then it was more broadcast TV because Netflix was kind of new and all that stuff at the time. Tougher to track. You didn't really have the tracking information like you do now.
Were there different offerings like, oh, come in for a teeth clean? I don't know. What are people saying to basically be compelling for someone to take an action and call? Or is it just, you're hitting someone when they have pain and so they happen to call?
No, so I think like if you go to the offer level, right, you're really getting to the value prop. But when you research the consumer, generally what it's going to come down to, well, what's the consumer's needs? Are you at my convenience? Are you budget friendly? Are you affordable? And are you a doctor that I feel like I can trust? And so typically what it comes down to is depending on the model of office you're running. So again, let's just say, we're mainly accepting insurance here. Fee for service is going to be a little bit different. Medicaid is going to be a little bit different. So let's just say you're in office, you say, hey, I accept most insurances. Number one is, most of your patients are coming through insurance directories. It's a reality. So you want to make sure you're in all those directories and that type of stuff. You want to make sure you're promoting that you accept those insurances. The offers are all of a sudden less important because a new patient special, you generally can't do it too well with insurance because of the rules. Now, if it's like an implant or a cosmetic procedure, I can promote that. I can promote Invisalign, $500 off. Come in and whether your insurance applies or not, it's a different ball game. But what I really found over the years is, yeah, you need some new patient offers. The dollar amounts can shift for people that maybe don't have insurance or their fee for service. But if they're insurance driven, that it's not so much the offer. It's, hey, look, I'm calling you. Can you get me in when I need to get an appointment? I'm a mom. I got my kids after school. Can we stop in 3 o'clock on Wednesday and get our see our family? Hey, I'm a working professional. Can I come in on my way to work or after work so I don't have to take the time off of work? And the dental offices that really figure out like, hey, I can get you in at your convenience. Patients love it. The next piece of that is from an offer standpoint. It's nobody likes to go to the dentist and feel like they got ripped off, right? So, hey, I'm affordable. I'm not walking out with a big, massive, huge bill when I have insurance all of a sudden. So it's, you promote the affordability. And look, the last one is, You go in normally, you get your teeth cleaned or whatever. Most of us walk out feeling pretty good. If you're walking out and you're in pain, then all of a sudden you're like, well, that was a horrible experience. Or, the doctor was not friendly or the hygienist wasn't friendly. So, that's what I mean by like, can I trust my doctor? Does he or she seem like they're actually treatment planning for me? It's specific to me. They're caring about my care. They have nice bedside manner, if you will. And that's going to kind of lead us forward. From there, as a marketer, it's great, do some Invisalign offers, $500,000 off. You can promote Invisalign days. You can do like the new patient free exam and x-ray. And the other one, believe it or not, really very grassroots. You got the old patient referral program. There's only so much you can do with that because of regulations, but something as simple as, hey, bring in a new patient. They're going to get that new patient examined special. You get a $20 Amazon gift card. They get a $10 Amazon gift card. Again, you got to keep those dollar thresholds really low. Those can be great for practices out there.
No, I mean, this I think applies to any industry, Ryan, which is like the convenience, budget, and trust, whether it's dental, any healthcare, any business in general, to be honest with you. And you were mentioning early on there was direct mail, TV, like traditional stuff. How has it shifted to today?
Well, current form, so like in the last couple of years, most people or dental groups bulk of their budgets in paid search. But what's really interesting is when you start to peel those numbers back, a lot of the traffic actually comes through the organic side, what people call search engine optimization, my online reviews, and social media is like an indirect play on organic. Most groups generally they don't understand that and they put so much into their paid search budget. Well, what AI has really opened up over the last year or two is, hey, because of AI, the way a Chat GPT, a Gemini, the younger generations going there and searching, people like myself are spending a lot more time in it from a work standpoint. Those engines are you can't go and buy Chat GPT like you can like a Google. Now all of a sudden your content, that search engine optimization, your social media, your videos that you're filming, that content becomes really important because if I go into Chat GPT, let's say, or Gemini, and I say, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, I'm in the zip code, find me a dentist who has an opening this week. They're going to punch up whatever that content is that they can find. So marketers are trying to figure it out right now, but that's the huge shift. The other one is you got stream television now, which allows you to target down to the zip code level. So before, when you used to buy television, you had to buy a whole market. It could be very expensive. It could be 10 years ago, low GRP level in Atlanta was like 30, 40 grand. Now you can say, great, I have a dental office here where really 85% of my patients come from a 10-mile radius. Here's the zip codes I know that are really good there. Put my paid search there, put my stream TV there, and now let's build a nice organic web from an SEO standpoint, and really try to dial it in and target it there. So that's where I've seen it kind of shift a little bit. And where I see it going is again, it's going to lean heavy into the AI. I think it's going to lean heavy into the content.
Let's talk about, I know you mentioned AI, some favorite AI use cases.
Yeah, so I got a couple. We've played around with it over the last year or so. And so one that we've done is so there's a software out there called PeerLogic. So it helps track your different marketing sources all the way through. So you can say I'm running TV, I'm doing direct mail, etc. It tracks all that through. But the beauty of it is the AI one listens to the phone call, can summarize it almost instantly as soon as you disconnect with it. It tells you if it was a new patient opportunity, if it was an existing patient opportunity. And they basically tell you if it converted or not. If it did not convert, what was the reason why? So now I can dial in and say, okay, well, maybe my office doesn't accept that insurance. Maybe my person answering the phone just screwed it up and they didn't present it appropriately. But the beauty of the software, and to me, the game changer is it can then say if it's a missed call situation, it texts that patient, the AI communicates just as a person, and you can schedule appointments directly through it. So we've piloted that in a variety of different offices. And I've seen it where we're picking up 13, 15 appointments, per month per office. These are appointments we
That's
would
huge.
want. It's massive. It's a game changer. when you're trying to fill a schedule, you say, hey, I need 40, let's say, appointments to make my schedule good for the month. And you're like, hey, I picked up 8, 10, or 14 over here because we weren't sufficient at answering our phones. Most likely that business would have gone somewhere else. So that's one that's huge. The other that we started to play around with is how can we be efficient as a marketing team? So I think the days of like I have to have an SEO person sitting down the hall, those days are changing a little bit because I can take my marketing manager if he or she is a really, good go-getter and they're willing to figure softwares out. I can, instead of paying $1,500 per month per office to do SEO like I was maybe 5 years ago, through an AI application that we run internally, maybe I can cover all, I think I'm covering all 60 of my offices for probably 15 grand for the whole year. So that's a game changer right there because it allows you to move your budget around and shift other things. And then, as we all, I'm sure, as you go on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you go, right now you're starting to see content being created and it looks real, just not totally passes the sniff test, but they're getting better at it. We're able to start doing videos as well where we can say, hey, office, send in photos of your office. We can do an office tour just by you sending that in through an AI software. And instead of me sending a film crew out there to film it for you, which can be expensive, it can take days to do it, send it in. My team can probably turn that around in about 24, 48 hours, and we can get it up on your website for you. And you can do like simple promotions, right? Like, hey, here's an Invisalign promotion, a little 15, 30-second clip, which we can then spill out into social media. And then, there's social media AI out there too, where I can cover my whole footprint at a macro level, run a bunch of different things, pilot it, schedule it. So yeah, maybe I got to take 10 hours on my team to build the content calendar for the month, but I literally have my social media running for all 60 offices. And they still go in there, they populate their own local content, put it up there. But the AI tool learns how to localize the content too. So all of a sudden you can say, hey, docs, good news is we can support you with social media, SEO, run across all your offices. The offices are happy because they're getting those services. We're being smarter with our budget so we can put our time and effort into other things.
You mentioned Pure Logic, and are there any other of your favorite software tools in kind of the AI space people should check out?
Yeah, so a competitor to Pure Logic is Resonate AI, which I think they're adding on some other additional functionality too. They do a great job with it. They've piloted variety of different offices and dental groups throughout the organization, and they're constantly adding new features. So is Pure Logic. So like they've done a really good job with it. Patient Prism's another one that's in the space, similar with what they're doing. But as they bring on things like AI agents and the ability to form fills come in to route it directly to a team within 60 seconds or less. The features are getting better. It's almost like an arms race out there, like who can build it faster and get it there. But I think all three of them are great softwares out there.
Yeah. No, this is great. Ryan, I have one last question. Before I ask it, I just want to point people to they could check out, peakdentalservices.com. Are there any other sites online that we should have people check out um, about you?
Yeah, so for Peak Dental Services, you got it right. It's peakdentalservices.com. We will be updating that website. That's on the roadmap for this year, so it's a little old and dated, but we're refreshing that. But it's a great company to go check out. Of course, we got the Glassdoor, Facebook, all that stuff. Easiest way to find me is LinkedIn. That's number one. Number two is it's just my first name, last name at gmail.com. Anybody can feel free, shoot me an email. Happy to talk and provide advice and guide people in the right direction if I can help them. And I like to learn too, so other people got cool stuff going on as well.
Awesome. Last question, Ryan, is just mentors. You've been doing this a long time. I'm sure people are learning from you. I know you speak at different conferences and things. Who have you learned from? It could be in the dental industry, it could not, but from a business perspective, who have been some of your colleagues or mentors you've learned from throughout the years?
Yeah. So a couple of the really impactful ones have absolutely nothing to do with dental. I was at a company called Entertainment Publications before I got into dental. They're a big like fundraising company, big fat coupon book that we used to sell as kids, do school fundraisers, stuff like that. But there was three guys there, Mike Stolarski, Ted Spears, Craig Gustafson. And I was really on the research analytics side before. And they said, hey, we need somebody who can teach us research and analytics. If you're willing,
I remember those entertainment books, by the way. Yeah, I used to use them all the time.
Yeah, so did I, right? I used to sell them as a kid. Um, and so basically what they said is, hey, look, we understand marketing, the value prop, all that type of stuff. If you're willing to teach us the analytics, we want to hire you. And it was just a great relationship because those guys, I never had a seat at the executive table. I never really presented in the boardroom before. And over time, we got comfortable with each other and they really showed me like, here's how you value prop. Here's why you should comb through certain things. And here's how you work with the other side of the fence or what to watch out for. And here's how let's present in the boardroom. And I don't know, I was probably 30 at the time or something. And, those guys taught me quite a bit about business. In the dental world, there's been a couple. Worked with some fabulous people. Two have I already mentioned, Lee Feenberg, Josh Gwynn. Rich Beckman was my first CEO over at Great Expressions, taught me a lot about the business. AJ Peak, who's our CEO at our current organization, he taught me a lot too about business and more on the merger and acquisition side. So, as you kind of go along the process, you're always very thankful for the mentors that you come across.
I love it. First of all, Ryan, thank you. Thanks for sharing your journey. Everyone check out Peak Dental Services. You can check out Ryan on LinkedIn, and we'll check out more episodes of the podcast, and we'll see everyone next time. Ryan, thanks so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Flow podcast. We'll see you again next time. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and go to jotform.com/enterprise to learn more.